guys, it's me again. I heard a lot of you liked the story that we got to read together last time, so I have another one. And it's kind of really special because do you know what's coming up soon? What is happening soon is Easter, right? We're all getting excited and getting ready for Easter. And even though this year it's going to be different because everyone's going to be at home and it might be a little bit different, but guess what? What we're celebrating about Easter is still true and still real. Because why do we have Easter? It's not the Easter bunny, although that's fun. It's not the chocolate eggs, although those are really good, and I'm looking forward to eating a lot of them. But that's not really what Easter's about, is it? What we're celebrating is that Jesus died on the cross for us and rose from the dead, just to show us his love for us, just to show us how much he loved us. And so we want to remember that. We don't want to forget that even though we're at home, even though things are different, and what we're celebrating for Easter is still the same, okay? So we want to make sure we're still going to celebrate it. And maybe later I'm going to do a video with the pictures that we have in the entrance, you know, that you guys always look at. And usually if you were at school this week, we would be doing that. So we're going to do that in a different video and looking at the pictures and talking about them. But I have another really special book here, and it's a very special one. I don't even keep it in the classroom or in the school because it is a special one. But it's one that I would like to read with you guys right for this week, okay? So are you ready? Hope you can see it okay. It's called The Tale of Three Trees. The pictures are nice and big too, so hopefully you can see it okay. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The trees there. The first little tree looked up at the stars, twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. He's dreaming of it up there. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed. The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I shall hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship, fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. They've all been cut down now. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Remember, the first tree wanted to be made into a treasure chest? Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. He had to go live in the barn instead. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard. But no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. Too small and too weak to sail an ocean, or even a river, he was taken on a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumberyard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled at the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. What was he holding? Baby Jesus. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun. And suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. There was Jesus all grown up. Remember the story when there was a storm? And Jesus stopped the storm. So now the tree realizes he got to carry a very special king. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. She was made into Jesus' cross. And she was pretty sad. She didn't want to be the cross. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. Because what was the third tree? It was the cross. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. So, you can think about the story. Think about what was your favorite part. Maybe what was your favorite tree. That the first tree got to become the manger that baby Jesus was born in. The second tree got to be made into the fishing boat that Jesus was in when he calmed the storm. And the third tree got to be the cross that Jesus was nailed to. So even though the tree didn't want to be the cross that Jesus was nailed on, but even though we know that he died, but that he rose again, so that when we look at the cross, we don't think sad thoughts. We think of how wonderful it is that God would do that for us, and that he rose from the dead for us. So we can look up, and whenever we see a cross, we think of God. Okay, so that's it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed the story, and we'll see you again next time. Okay, bye-bye.